I, 59M, have been married to my wife, Linda, 56F, for 34 years. We raised 2 kids, built a life together, and I honestly thought we were solid. Sure, we had our ups and downs, but nothing that ever felt like a real threat. About 6 months ago, I noticed Linda became different. She suddenly cared about how she dressed every single day. I don't mean casual nice, I mean makeup done at 7 a.m., new perfume, clothes I'd never seen before. When I asked, she'd snap back with something like, "Can't a woman take care of herself without you making it weird?" At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she just wanted a confidence boost. But then the late-night work meetings started. She works part-time at a local accounting firm, and suddenly she was too busy for dinners, family events, even our weekend traditions. The first time I felt my gut twist was when she came home at 1 a.m. smelling of cologne, not perfume. When I asked, she rolled her eyes. "Don't be paranoid, Harold. We were at the office finishing reports. You know nothing about deadlines." That's when the doubts really began. I, 59M, have been married to my wife, Linda, 56F, for 34 years. We raised 2 kids, built a life together, and I honestly thought we were solid. Sure, we had our ups and downs, but nothing that ever felt like a real threat. About 6 months ago, I noticed Linda became different. She suddenly cared about how she dressed every single day. I don't mean casual nice, I mean makeup done at 7 a.m., new perfume, clothes I'd never seen before. When I asked, she'd snap back with something like, "Can't a woman take care of herself without you making it weird?" At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she just wanted a confidence boost. But then the late-night work meetings started. She works part-time at a local accounting firm, and suddenly she was too busy for dinners, family events, even our weekend traditions. The first time I felt my gut twist was when she came home at 1 a.m. smelling of cologne, not perfume. When I asked, she rolled her eyes. "Don't be paranoid, Harold. We were at the office finishing reports. You know nothing about deadlines." That's when the doubts really began. The next morning, Linda acted like nothing happened. She made coffee, hummed some song, even asked me if I wanted eggs. It was surreal. But I couldn't let it go. So later that day, I casually asked, "Hey, which colleague did you have dinner with? You never mentioned their name." She froze for half a second. I caught it. Then, with the fakest laugh, she said, "Oh, it was just Susan from the office. She's been having a tough time, and I wanted to cheer her up." Now here's the problem. Susan had been at our house 2 weeks earlier for a small barbecue. We chatted, and she told me she was moving to another state to be closer to her daughter. That was months ago. So I said, "Funny, I thought Susan doesn't even live here anymore." Linda's face drained of color. Then she snapped, "Well, maybe I got the name wrong, Harold. Do you want me to write you a list of every single damn person I talked to?" She grabbed her purse and stormed out again. That was the moment the seed of certainty was planted. She wasn't just hiding something, she was lying, and badly. A few nights later, Linda left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. Normally, she guarded that thing like it was Fort Knox, face down, on silent, always within reach. But this time, it buzzed. Once. Twice. Then it lit up with an incoming call. The name on the screen. M, just the initial. I don't know what came over me, but I answered. A man's voice, low and casual, said, "Hey, babe. You make it home safe? Can't stop thinking about last night." My stomach dropped. I didn't even speak. Just listened. He paused and went, "Hello? Linda? You there?" I hung up immediately. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. When she came back into the kitchen, towel wrapped around her hair, she saw me standing there pale as a ghost. I asked, "Who's M?" Her smile vanished. She snatched the phone, glared at me, and hissed, "You had no right to touch my phone. God, Harold, you're pathetic." Then she stormed out of the house barefoot, still dripping water, phone clutched in her hand. That was the night I knew, this wasn't paranoia. This wasn't insecurity. This was real. After that phone call, my world tilted. I wasn't just suspicious anymore, I was certain. But I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. A few days later, Linda said she was working late again. My gut screamed at me to follow her. So I did. I parked a few blocks away from her office and waited. Hours passed. No sign of her car. Finally, around 9 p.m. I spotted it, but not at her workplace. It was sitting outside a cheap motel on the edge of town. I sat there in my car, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. After what felt like forever, the door opened. And there she was. Laughing, holding hands with a man I'd never seen before. His arm wrapped around her waist like they'd been doing this for years. They kissed, passionately, like teenagers, before getting into his car and driving off together. That was it. The smoking gun. The image burned into my brain forever. When she came home later that night, hair messy, smelling like cheap perfume and whiskey, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Long day at work. I'm exhausted." I just nodded, pretending to believe her, while my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. I couldn't keep quiet anymore. The image of her wrapped up with that guy at the motel was tattooed on my brain. I knew if I stayed silent one more night, I'd lose my mind. So the next evening, I waited until she came home. Same routine, she tossed her purse on the counter, muttered about being tired, and went to grab a glass of wine. That's when I said, calm but firm, "How was the motel last night, Linda?" She froze. Didn't even turn around at first. Then, slowly, she looked at me with this half-smirk like I was some kind of idiot. "What are you talking about?" she snapped. I stood, walked over, and slid a photo across the table. I had taken a blurry picture with my phone of her and that guy kissing outside the motel. Her face went pale. Then, like flipping a switch, she got defensive. "Wow, you've turned into a stalker now. Following me around? This is pathetic, George." I couldn't believe it. She wasn't even apologizing. She was attacking me. Gaslighting me like I was the crazy one. I slammed my hand on the table and shouted, "Don't you dare try to turn this around on me. I saw you. I know everything. Just tell me the truth for once in your damn life." And finally, she snapped. "Fine. Yes, I've been seeing him. You're boring, George. You've been boring for years. He makes me feel alive again. And honestly, I don't even feel bad about it." Hearing those words out loud, it was like someone reached inside my chest and ripped out my heart. After she dropped that bomb, I don't even feel bad about it, I just stood there, stunned. My ears were ringing, my hands shaking. But she wasn't done. Oh no. She leaned back in her chair, sipping her wine like we were having some casual chat about the weather, and started spewing lies like a broken faucet. "It's not even serious, George. It's just fun. You're overreacting. Men like you don't understand. You stopped paying attention to me years ago. He's just filling a gap you created." A gap I created? The woman I worked overtime for, fixed the house for, cooked with every Sunday, now she's telling me it's my fault she's sneaking off to motel rooms? I snapped. Fun. Fun. You've been crawling into bed with me every night after seeing him. Do you realize how disgusting that is? She rolled her eyes. Oh, please. Don't be dramatic. You act like I'm the first woman in history to want a little excitement. Stop pretending you're some perfect husband. Maybe if you hadn't gotten so comfortable, I wouldn't have looked elsewhere. That's when I felt it, rage boiling so hot I thought I'd break something. My vision blurred. I remember shouting, words tumbling out like wildfire, "You've humiliated me. You've spit on everything we built together. And you dare sit there blaming me?" Her response. She laughed. Laughed. Like the whole thing was some sitcom, and I was the clueless fool screaming his lungs out. That laugh was the breaking point. It was the moment I realized, this marriage was already dead. That laugh, it still echoes in my head. It was like a knife twisting in my gut. Not a hint of remorse, not a shred of guilt. Just mockery. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked upstairs, shaking, grabbed a duffel bag, and started tossing clothes in. She followed me, arms crossed, still smirking. "Oh, come on, George. What are you doing now? Running away? Typical. Can't handle a real woman, so you pack up like a scared little boy." I ignored her. Zipped the bag. Every second I stayed in that house, I felt smaller, weaker. She leaned against the doorway and kept going, "You won't last a week without me. Who's going to cook for you? Who's going to make sure you don't forget your doctor's appointments? That little friend of yours at work? Or are you planning to shack up with some barmaid half your age?" I wanted to scream back. Instead, I just looked at her and said, "I'd rather live alone in a tent than stay one more night with a liar like you." For the first time that night, her smile cracked. Just for a second. Then she scoffed and said, "Fine. Go. But don't come crawling back when you realize no one else wants you." I walked past her, down the stairs, out the front door. The air was cold, biting, but for the first time in months, I could breathe. The home we built together wasn't a home anymore. It was a graveyard of broken trust. And as I drove away, bag in the back seat, I realized, I wasn't losing her. I was finally escaping. That laugh, it still echoes in my head. It was like a knife twisting in my gut. Not a hint of remorse, not a shred of guilt. Just mockery. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked upstairs, shaking, grabbed a duffel bag, and started tossing clothes in. She followed me, arms crossed, still smirking. "Oh, come on, George. What are you doing now? Running away? Typical. Can't handle a real woman, so you pack up like a scared little boy." I ignored her. Zipped the bag. Every second I stayed in that house, I felt smaller, weaker. She leaned against the doorway and kept going, "You won't last a week without me. Who's going to cook for you? Who's going to make sure you don't forget your doctor's appointments? That little friend of yours at work? Or are you planning to shack up with some barmaid half your age?" I wanted to scream back. Instead, I just looked at her and said, "I'd rather live alone in a tent than stay one more night with a liar like you." For the first time that night, her smile cracked. Just for a second. Then she scoffed and said, "Fine. Go. But don't come crawling back when you realize no one else wants you." I walked past her, down the stairs, out the front door. The air was cold, biting, but for the first time in months, I could breathe. The home we built together wasn't a home anymore. It was a graveyard of broken trust. And as I drove away, bag in the back seat, I realized, I wasn't losing her. I was finally escaping. The next morning, I woke up in a cheap motel room with sunlight creeping through the blinds. For the first time in weeks, I hadn't jolted awake with that sick pit in my stomach. Instead, I felt lighter. I made myself a terrible cup of instant coffee and just sat on the bed, staring at the steam rising from the cup. No yelling. No slamming doors. No fake smiles hiding daggers. Just silence. And it felt good. On a whim, I drove to a little park outside town. I walked along the path, watching kids ride their bikes, couples holding hands, older folks sitting on benches feeding birds. For once, I wasn't bitter watching them. I wasn't comparing their lives to mine. I just was. Then it hit me, maybe Linda was right. Maybe this betrayal wasn't the end of my life. Maybe it was the start of something new. I pulled out my phone, hovered over my wife's number for a long moment, and then deleted it from my favorites. A small gesture, but it felt like cutting a chain off my ankle. I wasn't healed, not by a long shot. But for the first time, I could see a road forward. And it didn't have her on it. After that morning at the park, I started to realize something I hadn't let myself feel in years: freedom. Not the reckless kind, but the quiet, almost imperceptible freedom that comes when you stop carrying someone else's betrayal like a weight on your shoulders. I spent the next few days sorting through my life, both literally and figuratively. Clothes I hadn't worn in decades, books I never touched, reminders of holidays and birthdays, everything that felt like us was now something I had to re-examine. I didn't want to erase memories completely, but I knew I had to stop letting them define me. I also began reaching out to old friends I'd lost touch with over the years. The people who had drifted away while I focused on the marriage, on family, on stability. To my surprise, they welcomed me back with open arms. Late-night phone calls, coffee dates, and even a poker night or two reminded me that life could still have laughter, even after betrayal. It wasn't about replacing Susan. It was about reclaiming myself. And with every small step, cleaning the garage, fixing a leaky faucet, helping a neighbor with yard work, I felt a little more grounded, a little less hollow. I realized that while Linda's words had hurt me deeply, they also cracked open a door I hadn't realized existed, the door to a life that was mine, finally, unencumbered. A week later, just as I was starting to feel some semblance of peace, my phone rang. The caller ID said Linda. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard from her since I left the house, and I wasn't sure I wanted to. Curiosity, or maybe a lingering sense of accountability, made me answer. George, can we talk? Her voice was calm, almost too calm. I froze. Part of me wanted to hang up, slam the phone down, and pretend she didn't exist. But another part, the part that still felt the sting of betrayal, kept me on the line. I don't think there's anything left to talk about, I said cautiously. Oh, come on. You're being dramatic. I just want to explain myself. You don't even know the whole story, she insisted. I felt a surge of anger mixed with disbelief. Explain yourself. After everything? I know enough, I replied quietly but firmly. Whatever story you have doesn't change the fact that you lied to me, slept with someone else, and laughed about it. I'm done being part of that life. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her take a deep breath, probably looking for a way to manipulate me, but I refused to give her the satisfaction. I guess you're right, she finally muttered, the confident tone slipping. I just thought. I don't know, maybe we could try. I cut her off. No. The marriage you wanted to try again on your terms is gone. I'm living my life now, and I suggest you do the same. After a heavy silence, she hung up. And for the first time, I felt the cold, unshakable finality of my choice. She was gone from my life, not physically, but emotionally, and that was enough. In the days that followed, I started to notice something I hadn't in decades, the quiet joy of living for myself. No more tiptoeing around someone else's moods, no more pretending everything was fine while my gut screamed otherwise. I took long walks in the mornings, something I hadn't done since retirement. I rediscovered the local library, spending hours in aisles I'd once ignored, reading books purely for pleasure. I even started cooking again, not for anyone else, but for me. A simple omelette, a perfectly brewed cup of coffee, the satisfaction of small routines without someone criticizing, judging, or demanding attention. Evenings became my own. I'd sit in the living room, windows open, listening to old records I loved, singing quietly along without fear of mockery. The loneliness I feared transformed into a comforting silence, a space to think, to remember, and to feel whole again. I realized that independence wasn't loneliness. It was freedom. And for the first time in decades, I felt like I was reclaiming not just my life, but myself. One Saturday, I decided to visit a small art gallery downtown. Nothing fancy, just a quiet place to wander and lose myself in colors and shapes. I wasn't looking for anything, or anyone, but life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. Near a collection of abstract paintings, I noticed her. Emily. She had a warm smile and a curious sparkle in her eyes, like she was seeing the world in a way that made even the mundane feel magical. We struck up a conversation about a painting, then another, and before I knew it, hours had passed. She didn't pry into my past, didn't make me explain the mess of my life. She just laughed at the same jokes I laughed at, noticed the same little details I noticed, and somehow, made the world feel lighter. For the first time since everything fell apart, I felt a spark, a reminder that even after betrayal, heartbreak, and shattered trust, there's a chance for connection. A chance to feel alive again. I didn't know where it would go. I wasn't rushing. But I knew this, life had given me a second chance, not just at love, but at finding joy in living again. In the weeks that followed meeting Emily, I spent a lot of time alone, reflecting. The betrayal, the lies, the rage, it all still lingered, but I began to see the bigger picture. I realized that for too long, I had defined myself through the lens of my marriage. My happiness, my sense of worth, even my daily routines revolved around Linda. When she betrayed me, it felt like the rug was pulled out from under my entire identity. But in that emptiness, I found something I hadn't felt in years, freedom. I started small, working on myself, taking up old hobbies I had abandoned, even reconnecting with friends I'd drifted from. I journaled, went on long drives, and allowed myself to feel anger, sadness, and finally, acceptance. Emily became a gentle presence in my life, not a replacement, but a reminder that connection doesn't have to hurt. With her, I learned how to trust again, slowly, cautiously, but with hope. Most importantly, I realized something fundamental: betrayal isn't a reflection of my worth. It's a reflection of someone else's choices. And now, I get to choose mine. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I feel in control of my life again. And that, more than anything, is worth more than I ever realized.